For as long as I can remember, I have wanted to be a cheerleader. As a little girl, I remember going to the football games on Friday nights to watch the high school cheerleaders or participating in their summer camp. I dreamed that one day I could be one of them. I loved being with the other cheerleaders, the older ones, having them teach me how to do anything and everything that had to do with cheerleading. It was the best feeling when they involved me. I had been astonished at how these girls and boys could throw each other into the air and catch them, or do a standing backflip. Once I started cheering and competing myself, I began to realize that cheerleading is an extremely complicated activity, and if I wanted to be a cheerleader, I had to always be willing to give 110%. As I've gotten older, I have been in the argument more times than I can count with people saying, cheerleading isn't a sport. I never understood it. How could people not think it was a sport? When we compete, we work so hard, and people get injured all the time. I just did not get it. So, should cheerleading be considered a sport? Many people argue that cheerleading should not be considered a sport because all they do is cheer for other sports. But that's no longer true. While cheering on the sidelines is still a big part of cheerleading, it is no longer the top priority for most teams now. I do not necessarily think that what we do on the sidelines is always that strenuous, but we still get a workout. When it comes to the competitive part of cheerleading, though, there is no part of that routine that isn't physical. Cheerleaders are throwing and catching one another, doing backflips, dancing, yelling, sometimes all of these at once. Cheerleading can also cause major injuries. In 2012, the American Academy of Pediatrics stated that cheerleading accounted for 65% of all direct catastrophic injuries to girl athletes at the high school level and 70.8% at the college level. That's ridiculous. While injuries do not happen very often, when it does, the injuries can be life altering. If you look here, you can see that without the correct technique, many painful injuries can occur, such as this knee injury and the other accidents that you see here. Cheerleaders will not be able to stop if they are injured while they're competing. No one else can go in for them. There are no backups, no second chances, and their team is counting on them. Most of the time, they will have to finish out the routine in pain.
Don't stop, don't stop. I have a dance to it too.
Without a doubt, competitive cheerleading should be meeting the physical requirements to be considered a sport. Another huge part of why competitive cheerleading should be considered a sport is coaching. You cannot be a team without a coach. Sports need trained coaches who know what the sport is like and how to do things such as stunting and tumbling in the right way. Cheer teams are not allowed to stunt at practice unless a coach is present. You can get in so much trouble if you are doing things without your coach being there. Because of cheerleading not being considered a sport, it doesn't get the resources it needs, like a good coach or a practicing place. Some teams have coaches that don't know what they're doing, which leads to more injuries for the cheerleaders. Other teams may not even have mats to practice on or anywhere to practice at all. When I was in middle school on the cheerleading team, we had absolutely nowhere to practice one day. The gym was taken. The cafeteria was taken, which the coach had signed out for us to use, and the library was taken. There was absolutely nowhere for us to practice. Everything was being used. So our coach decided to sit us right out in front of the main office so that they would realize how badly we were being treated. It was not fair. We were practicing our cheers when the principal came up to us and said, "You guys aren't looking too good. Maybe you should work on that." And one of the girls on the team fired right back at him. "Well, maybe you should give us somewhere to practice and we wouldn't look so bad." The next week, we ended up having a place to practice, and that would not have happened without our coach putting herself out there to get what we deserved. Well, that story's quite entertaining. It shows the truth. Cheerleaders are not treated fairly because it's not considered a sport. If cheerleading was considered a sport, the teams would be treated so differently. Football players get everything they need. They are treated differently. They get in trouble and they're treated differently when they get in trouble. Everything is different with other teams, but cheerleading is treated horribly because they aren't considered a sport, so they don't matter. They're just cheering the other teams on. If cheerleading was a sport, they would have safe and correct resources that they needed to be successful. Cheerleaders work for 2 seasons out of the year. While most sports are just in the fall, winter, or spring, cheerleading is a fall and winter sport. Cheer teams go to competition after competition, trying to be the best team they can be. If you look up here, you can see pictures and videos from past seasons with the Downingtown West cheer team. I competed with my team at the state and national level 3 years in a row. I have seen the best of the best, and my team has worked more than imaginable to get to those competitions and be better than those teams. Being on a cheer team takes hard work and dedication. Once again, I will say, I agree that sometimes what cheerleaders do on the sidelines is not the most difficult, but competitive cheerleading always is. I urge you to look into more facts about what cheerleading teams do and how hard they work. I believe competitive cheerleading should without a doubt be considered a sport, and I hope I have persuaded you to think the same. Thank you.